Okay.
Hi, Nick. Thank you for your
Right.
time. Now, we've known each other for a year now, and we've worked together. And
Yep.
I'm really interested on these short interviews I'm doing with regards to how your and my neurodiversity has come into play at work. So, my first question to you is, what do you do?
Well, I'm a photographer, freelance photographer. I mainly photograph people, as in portraits, documentaries, editorial stuff, looking at people, what their stories are, what they do, where they do them, what's important to them. So it's very strongly about working with people.
Mm-hmm. Good. And do you consider yourself and how neurodivergent? Bog standard question.
Yeah, I do consider myself to be neurodivergent twice. Uh, I was diagnosed with ADHD 2 years ago, and back in 2015, I got a statement that I was dyslexic, which I'd suspected for years, but finally getting the statement and being told once and for all made a lot of difference. Made it kind of vindicated my trouble with words and being all over the place.
Did it help having the diagnosis?
Both of them, yes. I mean, I thought the ADHD, the dyslexia statement was the missing piece, and it became clear that it wasn't. So when I got the ADHD diagnosis, and suddenly everything made sense, I was just like, "Oh, that's who I am." I mean, it was crystal clear.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it made a huge, huge difference.
Mm-hmm. So going on to some of the traits that we have, how have you found making small talk? How have you found talking to new people? How have you found deadlines, etc., with your ADHD?
Well,
Big sigh.
I I I'm okay with small talk. I would say I'm probably all right with small talk in a sort of social, call it networking sort of context. If people look like they're open to chat, or they look friendly or whatever, then I'm good with that. I'm not good at getting into people who don't appear to be open. Uh, we could talk about socializing at work. In the workplace, I'm fine with people because I think it's because I have a sort of a framework. You have a role that you're playing in the workplace. So when you have that kind of role or framework, you can relate to people as that role rather than as just yourself.
Mm.
That for me is quite easy. I'm not fazed by people. More kind of social large groups I find more difficult, but I still enjoy them. I go to several networking things a month and I actually enjoy them.
Mhm. And
But
I
yeah,
I remember when we last spoke that you were starting to use sort of a traffic light system as to, yes, this is a nice conversation, but is this worth me spending any longer in terms of
yeah,
sort of a new business lead, which is hard for us because we're quite chatty when we're interested in
yes,
the subject.
yes. I do find that difficult. I'm not afraid to talk about what I do or why people should use a photographer, but yeah, I'm still not that good at going, well, I think you should use me, because here's why. But I do talk to people about what I do, and I do have cards I can show people and go, okay, pick a card. That's what I do. I have these lots of different postcards that kind of show a range of my work, and I say to people, pick a card, whichever one you like, pick one.
I love
So
that.
that way I can see which cards I'm running out of, so I know which kind of things people are interested in.
Mm. And do you think going back to not saying, pick me, is that imposter syndrome that we talk about a lot in ADHD?
It's possible. I still don't fully understand. I know it's simple. I know it's simple. I know a fish could understand imposter syndrome, but I don't. I I don't see. I think it's possibly the naming of it. I don't feel
Mm.
like I'm an imposter because I don't feel like I'm successful enough to look around and go, I don't deserve this. I'm not very successful. I deserve to be more successful. Maybe it's reverse imposter syndrome. I don't know. I'm just not very good at bigging myself up.
Mm.
That's
And
that's all there is to it. It's
how
a
is it?
self-esteem thing.
And how is it for you? I mean, I was in sales roles for years, and part of my job, which thank goodness, as I moved up the ladder, I didn't have to do anymore, was cold calling, which I found really hard. I mean, really hard. And I think that was for me all about the whole rejection of, are they going to be cross that I've interfered, that I've called on the hop? If I detect that there's a note of stress in their voice, they're doing something else, that would send me a bit agog. How did you find cold calling?
I hate it.
Snap.
If I would rather go to the dentist than cold call people.
That's a lot.
100% every time. Every time. Skydiving, injections, surgery, all of these things I would willingly do twice as often as I would cold call anybody. I cannot stand it. I won't do it.
Mm.
I I'm not good with phones anyway, but there's something awful about jumping into someone's life and going, what you need right now is a sales call. I mean, I know what I think if someone does that to me, and I'm pretty sure that's what they'd be thinking if I did it to them. You can't you can't communicate with people. All you're doing is basically shoving a message in their face and go, look at this. You know, it's
And if
it's
it's the
terrible.
telephone, you can't read any eye movement or
Yes,
any lip
all of
movement,
that.
which makes you feel even more presumptuous, taking their time.
Exactly. All of that. There's none of the non-verbal communication that you get when you're doing things face to face.
Mm.
And that's really important. You can tell when someone's ready for a chat. You can tell when someone's ready to move on. You can tell when someone's interested in something that you've just said that isn't your main point, but they'd quite like you to talk about that. And you get none of that from a phone call. And if I had to do cold calling, well, I'll give you an example. In a job I used to do, it was part of my job to, organize quite a senior executive. So I had to make things happen for her, which involved calling people and emailing people and what have you. And I didn't like doing that. What I would do is go and visit the people because it was a university campus. I could get out of my seat, go for a walk, go and visit the person, have a chat, find out what kind of mood they were in, care about them, show I cared about them, and deliver the message or the request. And, by the way, so and so would like you this is, or have you got this for so and so? So it became much more of a, I don't want to say a transactional thing, but there was much more going on than just here is an email or here is a phone call. And I found it worked really well. Also, being ADHD, it meant that I had a legitimate excuse to get up and wander off several times.
Mm.
Because when I got back, I was like, right, I've done that. I've energized. I've had my dopamine. I've sorted something out. I've had a chat to somebody. Brilliant.
Mm. I also found on the phone, obviously things have changed since COVID and there's more of this, but and when I do this now, I notice that I quite often take an eye breath away because I
Yeah,
never noticed how much I was probably masking looking at somebody all the time.
yeah,
But when you're on the phone, because we have a tendency to interrupt because we've got an idea that matches what they're talking about, you don't see that stop so you can start talking. And that's all a
yeah,
bit higgledy as well. And
yeah,
certainly for me, if I got a no on the end of the call, I would probably not pick up the call again for at least an hour and a half. I'd have to go and create some sort of reward for that awkwardness, and then I'd
definitely.
wander off. And it's quite interesting that we're very good at selling ADHDers, but I bet most people have cold call cringe moments as well.
I, 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 I don't understand how anybody can enjoy it, but then that means there are people out there I just don't understand, and that's fine. That's fine.
So what do you with your ADHD bring that ticks lots of boxes in your photography business?
Uh, Creativity, I think, first and foremost. I I say this as a kind of a my strap line, if you like. If I'm the character, I make shit up. That's what I do. I make stuff up. I make stuff up all the time. I have to write it down, otherwise I forget it. But I look at my notes and I think, I've made all this stuff up. It's just instant kind of putting things together, especially if I'm with somebody else and we get on mentally and we kind of ping off each other, working in a creative team. I invent things. Working on my own, not so much. But if I in the right environment, I create stuff all the time without thinking. It's not a chore. Um, I think the thing with ADHD is we tend to be really good at dealing with the unexpected, with chaos. If something happens, if the shit hits the fan, while everybody else is going, "Oh my God, this is terrible," we tend to be the ones going like, "Right, okay, you do this, you do this. Yeah, I'm bossing you about, but trust me, you go over there, you go over there. Well, I'll stay here. I've got a plan. I can handle this." And other people are going, "No, this won't work." Yes, it will. It will.
I love a
So
crisis. I
I
love
I
it.
love going. I love going off script. I love going off map. People I know who, for example, maybe on maps, you go off the map and they're like, "Oh my God, we're lost." And I'm like, "No, we're not. We're not. Lost is a function of fear. You just don't know where you are. It's not the
I
same thing."
love that. I love that.
So that's my feeling on somebody who spends a lot of time outdoors and going adventuring and stuff. You're not lost unless you're scared. If
Mm.
you're scared of not knowing where you are, you're lost.
And you're not late unless you have ADHD.
Oh God, I'm late so often. That's the thing. I'm late so often that people ask me, how long does it take you to get here? And I reply like about 10 minutes longer than I think it does.
So I don't know about you, but to cover some of the traits that might let down the more conservative worker, I very often will say, "I have ADHD, so please apologize. Let me apologize now if I interrupt. I might be 2 minutes late. But by all means, if I'm talking and the meeting goes on, tell me you want me to leave." I wonder
Yeah.
if you are now owning your ADHD and sharing it with people.
I think a lot of what you said there resonates with me. I know I'm terrible at admin. I'm terrible at forms. I'm terrible at spreadsheets. Oh, spreadsheets.
Oh, spreadsheets.
Um, really terrible with, you know, planning and long-term goal setting and staying on task and shutting up. So, like you say, if you say in meetings, if you're going on, people, please tell me to shut up. I do the same. If you need me to shut up, say so, because I probably haven't noticed.
Mm, Because I think the
Uh,
alternative, when we never used to say anything, was, have I disappointed them? Am I offending them? Am I taking up their time? Am I disappointing them? We don't want to live that way anymore. I think
no,
we've had years of living that way.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's really, really helpful to get the feedback. Um, I value and encourage feedback, even if it's, look, you're being really annoying. You've gone massively off topic. Can you just leave me alone for 10 minutes? Come on, this isn't really the right time. You go, "Oh no, okay, that's fine. Now I know. Can we make a time to come back and do this again?" And I'll organize my thoughts. And yeah, 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 yeah. I'm aware of why I'm doing the things that I do that people might not find very helpful.
Mhm.
So I don't mind being picked up on that. And I'd encourage people to say, look, come back, come back. We haven't finished. Stop going off on tangents.
Mhm.
And that's fine. That's fine because we can communicate more effectively when we communicate more effectively, when we communicate more clearly and say, this is what I need.
Mhm.
You're over there. I need you over here. So I'm happy with that as a kind of an extra layer
Mhm.
of protocol, if you like,
Mhm.
keeping me on task, because otherwise I will just disappear.
And I think another thing that's really helpful is, if somebody throws something on you and says, "Can we have a chat?" That awful line,
Oh
or
yeah, that's
"Can
a
we
that's a bollocking coming in. That
Can we?
definitely.
Can we? I think we presume it's a bollock in RSD, or can we have a meeting, etc. And a client the other day was very worried about a meeting, and I said, "Well, what? What would you like to happen? Well, I'd really like the questions before the meeting. So ask. I think we forget sometimes that it's okay to ask to look after ourselves so we're the best version on that day.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I would say I've hardly ever considered it. I mean, it's just like someone says, "Can I have a word?" And you go, "Oh no, this is a bollocking. This is it. I'm getting sacked. I've done something wrong. What is it? Oh my God, probation extended. Oh, and to be honest, most of the time that is the case.
It is.
This is
It
why
is.
this is why I work for myself rather than other people.
Yeah, absolutely. So, would you give any top tips to photographers, self-employed creatives on here about when you just want to give up because you've had a bad phone call or a bad piece of feedback, how to look at it differently?
Um, well, first of all, if you're thinking about, I don't know, sacking it all and just running off in, you know, fucking it all off, don't. You can still do that tomorrow.
Oh, that's lovely.
You can still fuck it all off tomorrow. You can still burn the house down tomorrow and go and live in the hills in a little bivouac if you want to. But today, after you get that horrible piece of news or the really bad feedback or whatever, or things go, it's the fan. Don't just sit and think about what's happened. Think about how it feels. Think about what's actually changed. And the chances are that the rejection hurts, but it's probably not the end of the world. And there's probably a reason for it. And if you ask for feedback from, for example, somebody who doesn't give you the job you wanted, you might find that the feedback is nearly as valuable as, well, not in financial terms, but all feedback, all communication is important, all communication is useful. If you ask for feedback, if you understand why you have failed to do something or why you've disappointed somebody or why you haven't met a goal, then you might find it easier to meet that goal next time. So always look for the opportunity to learn and grow in your failures. Because those are the only times we really learn, I think, as adults, is when things go wrong. When things go right, we just carry on. When things go wrong,
Oh,
and something else. There's a piece.
vulnerability gives you such an opportunity to grow again, doesn't it? And
I think it does. You have to be comfortable with it, though, rather than,
yeah,
screaming, pulling out your hair, and
yeah.
disappearing into the hills, which I have considered doing to myself many times. But I'm glad I haven't, because I've been able to do other things afterwards once I've soothed myself, calmed myself down, and learnt maybe a painful lesson, but almost certainly a valuable lesson.
Thank you. That's brilliant. So, my last question to you is how can people find you? Because working with you, and I can say this from experience, is fun. You're particularly efficient, effective, but there's a caring element to you photographing as well. How can people contact you?
Well, I have a website. It's not up to date, but obviously it's not up to date. My website is www.nickrphotography.com.
Okay. Nick R for Nick Roll. Yeah.
Yeah, just check that. Actually, I might have got that wrong. That would be a surprise, wouldn't it? What
And
is
if you
wrong?
and if you can't find Nick, obviously contact me, anybody, and I will let you
You
know.
can you can find me with some of my lovely, lovely pictures. Look, here's some of my lovely, lovely pictures.
Come out. Oh wow. Yeah, I love it.
It is yeah, nickrphotography.com. God.
nickrphotography.com. And one thing I want to let you know is obviously for self-employed, sole traders, whatever, remember always that the government puts money aside through a scheme called Access to Work. You can find details on my website, and you might be able to get some funding, which you don't need to pay back, towards having a virtual assistant, because as Nick says, we're pretty crap at admin and executive functioning. I had to do the tax return last week. Oh, that was hard. And, you know, you can get coaching for free. You can get specific office layout furniture for free. So don't sweat it alone. And thank you very much for talking. Last question as well. Do you realize how many ADHDers are artists and famous photographers and so on and so forth? You are in a very abundant neurodivergent sector.
I would be very surprised if half of us weren't neurodivergent, honestly, which really kind of makes me question why photographers in particular are so. The photographer culture is so fixed on doing everything yourself. You know, you've got to do everything. You've got to be a one-man band. You've got to be a marketer. You've got to be a CEO. You've got to be a financial controller and a creative, and all the things all the time. And there's no reason why that should be. Nobody else does that. Plumbers have marketing people. Hairdressers have accountants. Why do photographers have to do it all themselves? We don't. We just don't. And we're not suited to it either.
And wouldn't it be great if there was a forum where you could kind of share tips, all of you neurodivergent creatives? Maybe that's something that we should have a look at and invite anybody to send any ideas.
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, I'd be certainly up for that. I know I've thought about it in the past. I know you have as well.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good idea because our challenges are not unique, but they're very often overlooked and they're very often misunderstood by us as well. And sharing understanding, sharing ideas, sharing resources and information, and supporting each other and go, I do that, this happened, you know, have you tried doing this? Have you tried talking to this person? Here's a really useful resource in terms of just, you know, information and ideas. All of that pertains to the overworked, terrified, and frankly, probably still winging it after 30 years, freelance creator. Absolute game changer.
For the game changer for me was admitting I had a vulnerability and couldn't do something very well, and swapping as a currency, me doing something for them and them doing something for me. Because I think from so many years of the shame that came with not realizing I had ADHD meant I wasn't very good at asking for help. We have to ask for help.
I can recognize that in myself as well, definitely.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Nick.
Quite welcome. Thank you.
Hope people contact you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers. All the best. Cheers. Bye-bye.